The abandoned wreck. The wreck drifted in the darkness, lost among the shattered remains of forgotten battles. Once, it had been a mighty vessel, designed for war or exploration. No one truly remembered. Now, it was nothing more than a discarded piece of history, rusting in an alien scrapyard. The air inside was stale, barely recycled by the failing life support systems. Dim emergency lights flickered, casting eerie shadows along the twisted corridors. No one had walked these halls in decades, maybe even centuries, and yet it was not empty. Captain Elias gripped the rusted ladder, his breathing controlled, his mind focused. His crew of 5 followed closely behind, their eyes scanning every corner of the derelict ship. Their own vessel had been damaged in an ambush, forcing them to land on this forgotten scrapyard moon in search of something, anything, that could get them flying again. "This place is dead," muttered Grayson, the team's weapons expert. His voice echoed in the hollow chamber. "Are we really wasting time here?" "We don't have a choice," Elias said, stepping onto the bridge. Dust coated every surface, but the command consoles were still intact. "If we don't find a way off this rock, we die here." Mira, the engineer, knelt beside a control panel, her fingers tracing over faded symbols. "This isn't just any wreck," she whispered. "It's different." Elias turned to her. "What do you mean?" She wiped the dust away, revealing something strange. Human writing mixed with alien script, a forgotten hybrid of technologies. No known fleet had ever used such a combination. "This was never a standard ship," Mira continued. "It was something special." Elias looked around. The walls had scars, but beneath them, strange metallic veins pulsed faintly, as if the ship itself was not entirely dead. He reached for his communicator. "Try to get power online," he ordered. "Let's see what this thing really is." Mira nodded, setting her tools to work. The others fanned out, weapons ready. Silence settled over them. Then something clicked. A low hum spread through the ship, weak at first, then steady. Lights flickered, consoles powered up, and deep within the vessel, something awoke. A voice, distorted and ancient, echoed through the speakers. "Unauthorized access detected. System rebooting." Grayson raised his weapon, but Elias held up a hand. "Wait." The voice continued, identifying. "Human genetic markers detected. Security clearance restored." Mira's eyes widened. "It recognizes us." The ship shuddered as deeper systems came online. Walls shifted, old mechanisms groaned back to life. Then the ship spoke again. "Welcome back, Captain." Silence. The crew exchanged glances, uncertain. Elias's heart pounded. This ship, abandoned and forgotten, was not just a wreck. It was waiting. And now, it had found its crew. Jonas and Mira worked side by side, rewriting code, modifying circuits, and welding alien components into human frameworks. Bit by bit, the Revenant transformed. Their shields had been disabled. Now they had Xerax adaptive plating, capable of dispersing energy blasts. Their weapons were offline. Now they had stolen Xerax plasma turrets, twice as powerful as before. Their engines were failing. Now they had hybrid thrusters, fusing human ingenuity with alien efficiency. The Revenant was no longer just a human ship. It was something new. Elias watched the final system checks roll in. It had taken hours of relentless work, but now the ship was ready. Mira stood beside him, arms crossed. "We just turned their own weapons against them." Elias nodded. "And now, they'll never see us coming." Sarah Lynn, their tactical officer, looked up from her station. "Speaking of that, we just intercepted a transmission." Elias frowned. "From who?" Sarah tapped the console. A cold, guttural voice filled the bridge. "The humans escaped. Hunt them down. Destroy them." Elias's grip tightened. The Xerax weren't just hunting them anymore. They were coming to wipe them out. Mira exhaled. "They don't know, do they?" Elias smirked. No, they still think we're weak. Jonas cracked his knuckles. Then let's show them how wrong they are. The Revenant powered up, its stolen Xerax technology humming with new energy. The hunters were coming. But this time, humanity was ready. The silence that followed was heavy. The crew stood frozen, staring at the control panels as the ship's systems slowly came to life. Grayson tightened his grip on his rifle. Did that thing just call you, Captain? Elias didn't answer immediately. His mind was racing. This wasn't normal. Ships didn't just wake up and recognize people. Mira was already running diagnostics, her fingers flying over the console. This system is advanced. I don't even recognize half the code running through it. How is that possible? Asked Jace, the team's pilot. If this thing was dumped here, it should be dead. No power, no AI, nothing. But it wasn't dead. It was waking up. The ship shuddered slightly, as if shaking off centuries of dormancy. Screens flashed erratically, and deep within the metal hull, something moved. The hum of energy built up, growing stronger. Elias stepped forward. Computer, identify yourself. For a moment, there was no response. Then, the voice returned. Calmer now, clearer. Designation, Nimi says. Prototype human-alien hybrid warship. Status, dormant, until now. Mira's breath hitched. A hybrid warship. This thing isn't just some abandoned wreck. It was an experiment. Elias exhaled slowly, and no one ever came back for it. He turned, looking down the dark corridors. The ship had been abandoned for a reason. Either it was too dangerous, or its creators had feared what it might become. Why would anyone leave a ship like this? Grayson muttered. Because they were afraid of what it could do, Elias said. The control panels continued to light up, more functions unlocking. Weapon systems, cloaking technology, a propulsion drive unlike anything they'd ever seen. And then, a different screen flickered. Incoming transmission detected. Jace frowned. Wait. From where? Before anyone could answer, the ship responded. Unknown vessel approaching. Energy weapons detected. Threat level, critical. The crew exchanged glances. Looks like someone doesn't want us taking this ship, Elias muttered. Outside, the darkness of space stirred. The wreck had been forgotten for decades. But now, the moment it had powered on, something, or someone, had taken notice. And they were coming. The ship trembled as the warning signals flashed across the consoles. The words "unknown vessel approaching" pulsed in blood-red letters, sending a chill through the crew. How the hell did they find us so fast? Grayson growled, gripping his rifle. Mira's fingers danced over the controls, her eyes scanning the data. The moment we powered this thing on, it must have sent out some kind of signal. Whether it was intentional or not, we just lit up like a beacon. Elias turned toward Jace. Can you identify the incoming ship? Jace studied the readings for a moment before his expression darkened. It's not just one. It's a squadron. Silence fell over the crew. A single ship might have been manageable. A squadron meant someone had been watching. Someone had been waiting. The ship's AI voice broke the tension. Hostile crafts detected. Engaging defensive protocols. Metal groaned as unseen mechanisms deep within the ship began to activate. Screens flashed as weapon systems came online. Ancient, forgotten technology waking from its slumber. Weapons? Elias asked. Mira nodded, her face pale. Not just weapons. Prototype weaponry. Stuff that doesn't exist anywhere else in the galaxy. Elias exhaled. Which means the people coming for us aren't here to talk. Jace's hands flew over the controls. They'll be in range in less than 5 minutes. Grayson tightened his grip on his rifle. Then we fight. Elias stared at the ship's interface. This wasn't some rusted old wreck anymore. It was a sleeping giant, and now it had opened its eyes. Computer, he said, voice steady. Can this ship still fly? A brief pause. Then the AI responded. Reactor initializing. Power output at 23%. Rising. That's not fast enough, Mira muttered. Elias clenched his jaw. Then we buy it time. Outside, the darkness of space shifted. The squadron was closing in fast, their engines burning bright like predatory eyes in the void. The hunters had arrived. And they had no idea what kind of nightmare they were about to awaken. The ship vibrated as the enemy squadron drew closer. The control panels flickered, data streams racing as the AI processed the incoming threat. Enemy vessels in attack formation. Estimated time to engagement, 2 minutes. Mira's hands flew across the console. Shields are still offline. Weapons are warming up. But they're strange. I don't recognize half of this technology. Elias didn't have time to question that. They needed to move. Jace, can we get this thing airborne? Jace's fingers hovered over the controls. Engines are charging, but they're sluggish. It's like they haven't been used in centuries. Grayson stood by the viewport, his rifle slung over his shoulder. So what's the plan? We sit here and wait to get blasted, or do we make them regret coming after us? Elias clenched his jaw. They didn't know who was coming, but the fact that a squadron had been dispatched meant whoever it was saw them as a threat. Computer, he said, keeping his voice even. Do we have any functional weapons online? A brief pause. Then the AI responded. Primary weapon systems operational. Status. Unknown prototype. Jace frowned. That doesn't sound reassuring. Yeah, well, Elias muttered. It's all we've got. The ship's deep mechanical hum intensified as the unknown systems continued activating. Along the walls, ancient circuits pulsed with power, feeding into something buried deep within the ship's core. Suddenly, a new alarm blared. Enemy vessels locking on. Incoming missile salvo. Grayson stepped forward. That's it. We need to fire back. Now. Elias didn't hesitate. Computer, return fire. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, the ship shook. It wasn't an explosion. It wasn't a malfunction. It was the sound of something deep within the vessel waking up. Outside, in the vastness of space, the first enemy ships came into view. Sleek, predatory, their weapons glowing with deadly energy. They fired. But before their weapons could reach, the Nemesis moved. Not like a standard warship, not like anything Elias had ever seen. The ship shifted, almost as if it were alive, dodging the incoming fire with inhuman precision. The air inside the control room felt charged, like static before a storm. Then, the ship fired back. A single beam of dark energy erupted from its hull, silent, almost invisible against the void of space. It struck the lead enemy ship in an instant. And then, the enemy ship vanished. No explosion, no debris, just gone. Silence filled the control room. Grayson whispered, "What the hell kind of weapon is that?" Mira's voice was barely audible. "I don't think this is just a warship. I think it's something else." Elias watched as the remaining enemy ships hesitated. They had expected to wipe out an abandoned wreck. Instead, they had woken up a nightmare. The Nemesis was no ordinary ship, and now, the galaxy was about to learn exactly why it had been abandoned. You said, the enemy squadron, once confident and aggressive, hesitated. Their formation faltered as they registered what had just happened. One of their ships had vanished without a trace. No explosion, no wreckage, just erased. Inside the control room, a tense silence followed. Grayson's grip tightened around his rifle. That wasn't a normal weapon. That was something else entirely. Jace stared at the console, his fingers twitching over the controls. I'm getting nothing from their ship. No energy signature, no debris. It's like it was never there. Mira exhaled, her voice barely above a whisper. This ship isn't just old. It's a relic of something far beyond what we understand. Elias took a steady breath. The truth was becoming terrifyingly clear. The Nemesis wasn't just upgraded. It was built with technology that shouldn't exist. And now it had chosen a side. The AI's voice broke the silence. Enemy ships recalibrating. Threat level increased. They are preparing a coordinated attack. Elias' mind raced. The enemy was scared, but fear made people dangerous. Jace, how fast can we move? Jace glanced at the reactor output. Engines are still not at full power, but we can move faster than them. Maybe even outmaneuver them. Grayson smirked. Then let's show them what this scrap heap can do. The ship lurched forward, faster than anyone expected. The inertial dampeners barely kept up, pressing them into their seats as the Nemesis darted through the black void. The enemy opened fire. Bright streaks of plasma shot through space, closing in like a deadly net. But the Nemesis danced between them. It twisted, defying the laws of physics, moving more like a living thing than a machine. And then it struck back. The ship's dark energy cannon fired again. Silent, deadly. This time, it sliced through two ships at once. Gone. No explosion, no wreckage, just erased from existence. The remaining enemy ships panicked. Their once organized formation broke as they scrambled to escape. Mira's hands shook over the console. They're trying to retreat. Grayson scoffed. Smart move. Elias didn't smile. No, they're calling for reinforcements. The realization sent a chill through the room. If this was just the first wave, then whatever came next would be far worse. Jace cursed under his breath. We need to get out of here. Now. Elias nodded. Set a course, anywhere away from here. The ship's AI responded instantly, navigating escape trajectory, calculating optimal route. But then, a new alert flashed across the screen. Unknown energy surge detected. Anomaly forming. Elias' stomach twisted as he saw it, a rift opening in space, and something massive was coming through. You said. The crew barely had time to react before space itself tore open. A massive rift, dark, swirling, unnatural, expanded before them, spilling the sickly, glowing mist into the void. The enemy ships that remained froze, their pilots too stunned to act. And then it emerged, a colossal warship, unlike anything Elias or his crew had ever seen. Its surface was shifting, a fusion of metal and something alive. Its presence sent a pulse through the Nemesis systems, causing displays to flicker and distort. Mira gasped. That thing, it's not one of theirs. What the hell is that? Jace's voice was tight with fear. I don't think it's from this galaxy. The enemy ships attempted to scatter, but it was too late. A wave of dark energy rippled from the colossal vessel, engulfing the nearest ship. It didn't explode. It didn't break apart. It simply unraveled. Matter stripped away, dissolving into nothing as if it had never existed. Grayson clenched his fists. What the hell kind of weapon is that? The ship's AI flickered. Warning. Anomaly is exhibiting non-standard physics. Unknown entity detected. Advising immediate retreat. Elias barely heard it. He was staring at the thing that had just appeared on their screens. Because it wasn't a ship. It was something ancient. Something watching. Something waiting. And now, it had noticed them. A deep vibration rumbled through the Nemesis, shaking the crew to their bones. The ship's energy readings spiked, the strange core pulsing violently. Mira's fingers danced over the controls. Whatever this thing is, our ship is reacting to it. Jace cursed. You mean like it's afraid? Elias' grip tightened. No. He looked at the screens, feeling the weight of something vast pressing against his mind. It's waking up. For a long moment, no one spoke. Then the colossal entity shifted. It turned its focus toward the Nemesis, and a single message, written in an unknown, unreadable script, appeared on every screen in the ship. Elias felt the words, even though he didn't understand them. But somehow, Deep inside, he knew what they meant. You are not supposed to exist. And then the thing moved. The colossal entity pulsed, radiating a presence so vast that it distorted reality itself. The crew of the Nemesis felt it, not just through the ship's systems, but deep within their minds, like an ancient force pressing against their very souls. And then it moved. The void around them rippled, as if space itself was afraid. Elias couldn't breathe. The words on the screen still burned in his mind. You are not supposed to exist. The entity knew about the Nemesis. It recognized it. But why? Jace's voice was barely a whisper. Elias, what do we do? Elias' mind raced. Running was pointless. Fighting was suicide. But there was one thing they still had, the Nemesis itself. He turned to Mira. What's our core output? Mira's hands trembled over the console. It's changing. The energy levels are rewriting themselves. I don't even know what units to measure this in. The ship's AI flickered. Core synchronization in progress. Unknown entity attempting system override. Grayson slammed his fist against the console. Like hell they are. Shut it down. Mira's fingers flew over the controls. I can't. The ship is reacting on its own. Elias clenched his jaw. The Nemesis wasn't just a ship anymore. It had become something else. Something ancient, something powerful. And the entity in front of them wanted to erase it. The colossal being pulsed again. This time, a wave of pure darkness expanded outward, swallowing everything in its path. The remaining enemy ships didn't even have time to react. They vanished. No explosions, no wreckage. Just gone. And then, the wave reached the Nemesis. The ship shuddered violently, alarms blaring as energy levels spiked into the impossible. Jace screamed. Shields are failing. Mira gasped. The core, it's activating something. A deep, inhuman sound echoed through the ship, not from the speakers. From the Nemesis itself. The hull glowed with strange alien markings, symbols that had never been there before. The ship wasn't just resisting the entity's attack. It was answering. A pulse of impossibly bright energy erupted from the Nemesis, colliding with the entity's wave. For a single, heart-stopping moment, everything stopped. The void between them cracked, space itself trembling under the force of the collision. And then, the entity screamed. Not in sound, but in thought. A raw, primal rage that sent shivers through the crew. The rift behind it shuddered, beginning to collapse. The entity withdrew. It wasn't defeated. It wasn't destroyed. But for the first time, it hesitated. And then, with one final pulse, it vanished. Silence filled the bridge. The Nemesis drifted, glowing faintly, its energy levels stabilizing. The markings on its hull slowly faded, as if going dormant once more. Elias exhaled, his hands shaking. Mira was the first to speak. What just happened? Jace swallowed hard. We won. Grayson shook his head. No, we survived. Elias stared at the empty void where the entity had been. He didn't know what the Nemesis really was, or why that thing had called it an impossible existence. But one thing was certain. They had not seen the last of it.